Again, I would like to just welcome you to the probably second child protection policy training. The new one that has been revised is what we're going to be going over today. So I'm just completely excited to see all of you here this morning. I was honestly thinking maybe 10, maybe 15 people, so this is really exciting. I just appreciate you coming out to this. More so, I appreciate your investment here at Florin and to Jesus in serving our children and our youth here at our church. It is amazing how much that your lives are going to be impacting the children and youth of this church. And growing up in this church, I have so many people that I look at now that had taught me and had worked with me, whether it be in the choir or in the children's program or in the youth group. And I can definitely say that you are a valuable piece in their formation and as they are growing in the Lord. So thank you so much for your time this morning and for your time in serving. If you want to pick up, I have in front of me the Child Protection Policy and Procedures document. I'm going to be going over that first. As I was thinking about this policy, it really is a document that I really want us to value and to stand by, not only legally, but also as a body, and wanting to create an environment and a family and a building that is safe and secure and loving. But moreover, the two words that came to mind when I was thinking about this is, the first one is awareness. It is really important, no matter what this document says, that as a church we are aware of our children and we are aware of our youth and the needs that are presented every Sunday, every day that we are with them. So in any situation, that would be my challenge, that you just be aware of the children that you have, of how many adults are in the room, of the timing of what needs to happen in that situation. To just take that awareness and be self-aware in those moments. The other word that I thought of was open communication. Hopefully this document will increase our communication as a body of believers, and as we grow and as we dream as a congregation, I'm excited to see how we can continue to use this document and to be openly communicating with each other well. And that looks, from parent to parent, from usher to Sunday school teacher, from pastor to leadership team, however that looks. I'm hoping this document will also increase our communication moving forward as a church. So let's turn to the purpose statement on the second page of your document. Basically, I'm not going to read this word for word. I'm just going to highlight some of the points that I felt are important. Basically, the purpose of our church is to provide a safe and secure place, and it's the intent of this document to do that in a legal manner. This policy defines child abuse under the current state law and outlines the policies and procedures we will follow to help prevent abuse from occurring and report any kind of suspected abuse. It is our job to maintain a safe place, and so that is really what we're doing here this morning by taking this step. One thing I really wanted to remind all of you, that each one of you are mandated reporters. It is not just the pastor's job, it's not just the leadership chair's job to look for issues and look for concerns, but each one of you are in charge of that. And I know many of you, I can think of Dennis and different people in leadership where they've challenged me in that, and Carrie, where they've asked me, did you have 2 adults at that place? Or, making sure that we are protecting ourselves. And so I just really challenge each one of you to take that on and really take that seriously. And if you would ever suspect any kind of abuse or neglect, to, in love, look into that and possibly, discuss that with a pastor. Hopefully that would never happen, but just in case, I just wanted to make you all aware that by going through this, you are all mandated reporters. To policy administration. As far as, I'm just going to talk about all the activities that are included in this policy. It is anything with children and youth, so Sunday school, childcare during the worship services, toddler, nursery, preschool ages, Vacation Bible School, middle and high school programs here at our church, any kind of activity during the week, and any activity even off the premises for youth events and so forth. This policy is really meant to cover those things. The one thing it does not do is it does not pertain to outside church groups. So if we had a church group come into our building and use our facility, this will not pertain to them. There is a form, and I'll go over that in the appendix, that is specifically for them, that states that our policy is not in control of what they're doing. My hope is that they would have adults in a program that has their own policy in place. Any future changes to this policy? DMAT is the group that is in charge of this policy, but if there are any changes, those will be made through DMAT and through LT, Pastor Randy, and then will be presented to the church if there are any major changes, just to keep you on the loop of what is going on, and also in the light of that open communication. Going into the different roles of people, we have many people in our church who have specific roles that are paid positions, and then we have people that are volunteers, and so many people have responsibilities in this. So I'm just going to go down through that list. The role of DMAT is to create and implement this child protection policy, and it includes collecting and approving the approved adult and minor forms, tracking and updating the clearances for each approved adult or minor, and holding policy reviews as needed, and implementing trainings and overseeing any changes to the policy. So DMAT really is in charge of creating this and rolling it out. From here on out, if you have any questions or concerns or ideas, definitely see our DMAT team. They're a group of amazing individuals who are excited about discipleship here at Florin and are more than willing to work with our church in this area. The role of the senior pastor, he or she, right now, he is going to be working with Discipleship Ministry Action Team. They meet on a monthly basis, and my hope is that every 4 months, every other meeting, they will talk about the child protection policy, go over if it's working or not, if it is being utilized to the extent that it is supposed to be utilized to. And he will be in charge of kind of working with them and holding the church accountable, and also working with LT if there are any changes that need to be made, or in that regard, that he'll be working with them. The pastor is also the #1 designated reporter for Florin. So he would be the one that calls Childline if there was a suspected abuse case or a concern. So he would be the #1 person to go to. The role of the leadership team is to annually review and approve revisions to the child protection policy as proposed by Discipleship Team Ministry, the senior pastor, and to review and ensure the adequacy of the church's insurance policy and coverage. Again, DMAT's in charge, but LT is over top, and so if there's any kind of revisions or things that need to be done, LT, our leadership team, would take care of that and would work with DMAT to make sure that that is being done. Underneath, when I talked about the designated reporter, the pastor is the first person that people would want to report to. If the pastor is not available or is not able to be the designated reporter for whatever reason, the LT chair would take that spot. So the LT chair would be the alternate designated reporter. Any questions about those roles? Going into definitions, I just put definitions in here so we could clearly define some of these things. A child is anyone under the age of 18. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. An adult is anyone over the age of 18. And an approved adult, though, is different from an adult. An approved adult is what all of you are. You are making your way, or you have made your way, to becoming a person who can work with children on a regular basis, children or youth here at Florin. And I'm going to be going over the requirements for an approved adult later, but they're basically someone who has completed the 2 clearances, who has attended one of these trainings and who has been approved by DMAT to work with our children and youth. An approved minor is anyone under the age of 18 or the age of 12 and older. We have a lot of younger children who are willing to help out with childcare or with working with their mother or father in the nursery, and we want to make that available to them. So we have a approved minor place for them to fill out a form and get a recommendation. These approved minors do not need to have clearances, but they do need the recommendation in place of the clearances. An approved adult groomer would be just someone, again, who is an approved adult, but they are in a different place versus teaching or in the room. So they might be an usher, they might be someone who's maybe working in the hospitality team out here, and they are strictly a roamer, so a person that would just be in the halls, kind of aware of who's in the classrooms. If there, is one teacher, it is important that that approved roamer would be roaming in and out of that classroom to make sure that they were being safe and just being aware of what's going on in the church building. Below that, it talks about child abuse, the definition of child abuse. I'm not going to read through that, but any kind of physical, sexual neglect, any type of abuse that is seen or is heard of, we would like to have that reported and to really just ensure that we're being safe here as a church. Becoming an approved adult or an approved minor. Basically, to becoming an approved adult, there are two forms that you would want to see, and they're the forms in front of you, the policy and the appendix. The appendix has all of the forms. They kind of fit together. Through the policy, I've mentioned numerous forms that you'll find in the appendix, so we'll go over that next, but that's the sheet that you'll be wanting to fill out. It's important that you read and sign the Children and Youth Ministry Covenant, and then undergo two background checks. One is the Pennsylvania State Police Criminal Background Check, and the other one is the Pennsylvania Child Abuse History Clearance Form. They are, and I'll go over this later when I'm doing the appendix, but the first one, you can do one line or a hard copy, and then the second one, you need to mail in for the second, the Child Abuse History Clearance Form with a money order, and it also has to include the Pennsylvania State Police Criminal Background Check, a response that you got. So you send the first one out, get the response back, and then you send that along with your money order to receive the second clearance. We were talking as a DMAT staff and LT about how we should do that as a church. We have been going through our clearances, and I know when Lisa Brenneman was here, she had been updating her clearances, and at this time, many of you are already cleared. According to the lawyer that I had talked to, she said that we do not need to continue to update every 2 years or every so often. So DMAT will begin after today looking at those clearances and seeing who needs what. So my recommendation for this morning would be to complete the appendix for this new policy and then hold off on the clearances until DMAT contacts you. If you have served at a school or somewhere else and have gotten cleared, we are asking that you still fill out a form for the church as a volunteer, so that would be separate. The other thing that you have to do to become an approved adult is attend a training or to view the training that we're recording. And there's papers that just have you signing off. The purpose of the training, I mean, we could pass this paper out and just have people read and, and trust that they read it and have them work with our children. But the training is really significant just to bring everyone together, get us all on the same page, field questions, and also explain some of the documentation that you'll see out in the church. So it's really, the training is very important to attend and to be a part of as well. The other thing about becoming an approved adult is you have to be attending Florin for a minimum of 6 months as a volunteer. That's just so you get to know our church, you get to know what we're about here before you begin serving. And really, DMAT, if a person has been attending for 2 months and they know that they would like to start being a youth advisor, at that time, we want them to approach DMAT and have a conversation about what that would look like. DMAT does have the authority to approve a person that has not been here for longer than 6 months, but that is what we are asking in the beginning. The process of becoming an approved minor, I talked about the approved adult, and the only difference is that instead of the 2 clearances the adult needs, the minor just needs a recommendation from a person that is not a family member, and it's in the packet that's in the appendix. But that's the only difference. Everything else is the same. Let's go on to number 5 then, expectations for an approved adult and approved minors serving children and youth at Florin. Point A, and these are things that, these are basically generic rules that our church is establishing to really enforce and follow this policy. So the first one is the identification system for infants, preschool, and kindergartners. So this would be anyone from preschool to our nursery and toddler room. A lot of times our parents drop off their kids and then they go pick up their children. But a lot of churches have some type of identification system so that a stranger is not just picking up their child. So because of where we're at now as a church, my hope is that we will grow and we'll continue to expand our children's ministry. And so a lot of other churches do an identification card, and so that's what we created here at Florin, and so let me show you that. Basically, it's a laminated card that has the name of the parent or guardian, and then the date. And all that we're asking you to do is that the workers in that room would basically fill out the name. So for example, if, let's say, Aubrey Fry, you would put her name here. Wendy and Wayne Fry are the parents' names, and then the date. And then this card would go with that parent, and they would take it with them to the service. And then when they come and pick up Aubrey, they would return the card to the person who's in charge of the child care. The cards work well because, for example, the Fry family, if they want to send Amanda to go pick up Aubrey, they give Amanda the card, and Amanda can go and pick up Aubrey. So you can have siblings picking up your other siblings. They just have to have the card in order to ensure that it's going to the right person or the right parent. There will be a binder in each of the rooms, and in there will be white dry erase markers and also Sharpies. So if it's a regular attender, feel free to just fill it in, and you don't have to do it every single week. You don't have to rewrite the name every single week. Fill it in with a Sharpie and use that. If it is a guest, it'll be a great way to just let that parent know that we really care about your child's safety, and so take this card with you and just return it when you come back. I'm also giving name tags for children who are in the daycare program, or the nursery and the preschool. So if you ever need name tags for new children, you can just write on there and put it on their back or put it somewhere so they don't take it off all the time. So yeah, that's the identification system. I'm going to go through all of these, so if you have questions, just make a note of it, and then we can come back to it. The 2 adult rule, this is something that we've, I think, done a fairly good job of, but it's something that we need to continue to improve on. Basically, there needs to be 2 approved adults, or an approved adult and an approved minor in every classroom setting. So anytime there is childcare or there's a youth event, there should at least be 2 approved adults in that room. If for some reason on a Sunday morning one person is sick, that approved adult that is in the room should notify an approved roamer, so like maybe an usher or someone who's out in the building. Ideally, it would be great if they could just connect with someone who is approved and could serve fill in that morning. But if not, that's kind of the place of the roomer. The roomer would come in and check and make sure that, that the classroom was in good order. The second, on C, it says windows indoors. I believe that all the doors for our children's programs have windows. If there's not a window, or if there is not 2 approved adults, the door must remain open at all times. This is so the adult roamer could, glance in, could come into the room freely. Really, doors should never be closed unless they must be. But especially if there's just one adult room or one adult, there should be a door open. Parental permission. Permission slips are going to be enforced for any off-site event and are required for the parent or guardian to sign for every youth and child in the event. These permission slips are in the appendix, and we'll go over those. But it needs to be handed in to the approved adult or youth worker before the event. So when the kids are getting in the van, they should be handing in the permission slip, or when the kids are attending an outreach, they should be handing in the permission slip. So each event will need a permission slip that has the date, the type of event that it is, and the parent's signature. E, one-on-one situations. There are times when either in a mentoring relationship or like if a youth stays up in the youth room to talk to a approved adult after the lesson, that takes place. And we are strongly encouraging this to take place out in the public for sure, and to also have the adult be an approved adult. So just to ensure that everything is safe with that person. The overnight rule, this kind of goes with the youth, more with the youth group, but there should be there should be 2 approved adults at all times. One approved adult with 1 child is completely prohibited. That is never acceptable. If an overnight activity takes place outside of Florin Church of the Brethren, in conjunction with other churches, the non-Florin Church of the Brethren adults do not need to be approved by this policy. In this case, there should be at least 1 approved adult with each gender. For example, National Youth Conference or work camps that we go on. We usually have 1 female and 1 male, and usually there's more adults in the rooms, but we must have at least 1 with our kids. Transportation, there needs to be at least 2 approved adults in each vehicle. If there's only 1 approved adult, it needs to be in writing on the permission slip. And so the youth workers, the approved adults, the youth workers will have to print out permission slips that explain that there will be only 1 person. If someone is driving their own vehicle, they must be at least 20 years of age. And again, it is strongly encouraged that they use the van with 2 approved adults. If someone is driving the church van, they must be 25 years or older, unless there is an approved adult in the vehicle. So there needs to be at least 2 approved adults at all times. Let's jump down to H, the bathroom policy. With our bathroom policy, we really want to let kids use the bathroom on their own. We do not want to help. If they do need help, if they do need minimal assistance, we are asking that a worker have the door partially open and help the child as minimally as possible, and then let them do the rest. So what it says there, encourage independence and assist if needed. With diapers, we are asking that an approved adult would, if a diaper needs changed, that they would change the diaper. If the parent is available, we always want the parent to do it. So if they're coming in the room, or if they are just leaving, please allow them to do that. The last section of the policy, number 6, the guidelines for reporting suspected and or observed abuse by staff or volunteers in the church setting. Like I said before, each one of you in here are mandated reporters. So if you would see anything, these are the steps that you should take. Immediately report your suspicions to the senior pastor, since he is the designated reporter for our church. Again, if he is not available, the LT chair would be the second designated reporter. After you report it, the pastor or whoever the designated reporter is will fill out the following forms that are in the appendix. And you may be asked a few questions during that process to get the right information to Childline or to whoever it needs to go to. So we ask that you would be cooperative during that time, but then let the pastor or the designated reporter, if it's the LT chair at that time, be in charge of that. We also ask, number 3, just that it maintains confidentiality. We're a small church, and so it's really important that, you tell the pastor, and that's it. And he will, take care of it from there. So, just turning to the very first page, Children and Youth Ministry Volunteer Adult Application. This is for becoming an approved adult. All of you who would like to continue in that process need to complete this. I know that you filled out a similar application like this before when we had the other policy. We are asking that you complete this for this new policy now. DMAT is going to begin a spreadsheet and keep track of who has handed in their adult application and all of the forms. So we ask that you would complete this if you are an adult and if you're working with children and youth at Florin. The next section is for the minor. Again, that would be someone who is under the age of 18 and over the age of 12. Again, the only difference is that they do not have to do the clearances. They do, however, in place of that, have to fill out the recommendation. So they would have to fill out this and hand this in with their application. The next page is the Children and Youth Ministry Covenant Statement. Basically, this statement is saying that I read the policy and I acknowledge the responsibility to take care of children and youth, and all you need to do is sign and fill that in with your form. Underneath that is the completed training. All of you this morning can complete that, yes, I was in a live training. You can put today's date and hand that in with your application. All right, now I'm going to go over the clearances. This past week and this past probably months, we've been talking about the clearances and trying to figure out if we need to, who we need to clear, how often we should renew that, and so forth. And it is so true that this document, we're not just having this document just for the sake of having it. And so I think there is importance in making sure that each person is covered with these 2 clearances. As of now, DMAT is going to decide basically how often we want to renew these clearances. In the past, we tried to do them every 2 years, but that definitely did not always happen. So DMAT wants to decide, A, when to start the cutoff. Like, for example, I know Sue and I talked about people that have clearances renewed from 2010 and then move forward. So anyone before 2010 would have to renew theirs. DMAT is still going to be in that discussion, and they're going to be trying to figure out, what date they would like to start at to start the renewal of clearances. With that said, I'm going to ask that everyone holds off on the clearances until DMAT would contact you. Some of you may not have to renew your clearances. Some of you may, if it was before that date it was cleared, or whatever they decide. So as of now, we are waiting to have your clearances go through. If, like I said before, if this is the first time that you've wanted to serve at Florin, you do have to do the clearances. So that is an automatic, definitely do the 2 clearances. If you have served here before, then I would say just put a pause on that, fill out the other forms that I just talked about, hand those in, and then DMAT will contact you once they figure out how often they're renewing the the clearances, and who needs to have those cleared. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? When I asked the lawyer, they said that you do not have to renew the clearances, but then I would have to ask myself, are we just keeping this document, like what's the purpose then of not renewing them? I think it's important to check up and make sure that everyone is still in good terms and that they're all cleared. So that's why we're asking for you just to hold off on that. DMAT will make a decision and they'll contact you about that. Along with that, if you have any questions about the money and so forth, let me just show you these clearances. The first clearance, and a lot of this is just repeat, but for those of you who have not been through this process, I'll just share this real quickly. Online, you can get the first clearance, which is the Pennsylvania State Police clearance. You can either print out the form, which looks like this, and send that form in to get a response, or you can go online, type in all your information, and you will get this printout. And this basically says whether or not you are cleared or whether or not you have any background issues that are coming up. My mom and I did this. It was a wonderful adventure. It took us about 20 minutes to type in our information and have the printout. So it does not take a lot of time if you're doing it online. If you are mailing it in, that will take a couple weeks. Either way, if you mail it in or if you do it online, there will be a $10 fee for processing. The second child abuse history clearance is a little bit longer, and you will need to submit the response from the first clearance along with the second. You may find the second one online, or we also have copies over there on the table. You would complete this, send the other form with another $10 money order to the address above here. If you are doing this independently, you would just send that off and then you would get the response. You would bring the response into church and make sure that DMAT has a copy of that. If you would like DMAT to take care of that, you would have them take care of it. The church will be paying, is able to pay for the money order. We just need to have either a receipt or a verbal affirmation that this is your documentation. Could you send it off for me? The youth permission slip is Appendix F. Again, that's to be completed by the parent or guardian for every youth event that is off grounds. The identification cards is the next one, Appendix G. This, I changed the printing of this, so that's why it didn't look like the ones I showed you. This was really tiny, so I made them just more long. The next one is Appendix H, outside groups using Florin's facility. This is the release and waiver form. So for example, if a person comes into Jody in the office and they're like, man, I'd really like to use your facility for a birthday party. She would then give them this form, they would fill it out and sign it back to her, give it back to her for a copy. This would be the same for if you had a friend that wanted to use our facility, or if, I know we had a 4-H group in here different times. The person that is in charge would have to complete this form stating that our policy is not connected, they are liable under our roof. The last section, Appendix I, I just put this in your appendix so that you could be aware of what the pastor or what the mandated reporter will go through, the questions that will be asked. So if you would ever have to report something, these would be the questions that you would have to answer. And Pastor Randy or whoever's the LT chair at that time will complete this, make the calls that are necessary, sign a date, and then on the back is the checklist. And this was actually given to me by the lawyer that I've been working with, and she just sent this to me, and she said this is a very, this is one that I've used for multiple churches, that just, you know, she changed the wording to apply it to our church and said put this in your appendix. So, yeah, that's what she put that. I'm just going to show you the binders real quick that'll be around the church and that you'll need to use. Alright, the children's nursery and toddler room and the preschool room are pretty much identical binders. Basically, these binders will have inside the policy and procedures. If you ever have any questions or want to look back and make sure, am I following this correctly, it'll have a copy of that. The second tab will have the name tags. These are the slips that you want to fill out for the identification cards for the children, the markers, and the Sharpie to use them. There's also a copy if you want to make copies. These identification cards that are in here are laminated, but there's a hard copy right here if you have any need to use that. Also, what will be in these binders is an updated list of everyone who is cleared and able to work with children, who is an approved adult or an approved minor. And that will be in there from DMAT once they figure out who is currently approved. So, for example, the questions that came up, you know, if you're alone in your classroom and you need someone else because the other person didn't show up, you would tell a roomer or someone else, hey, can you please go find someone on this list to come and serve this morning because I need another adult. So that is the preschool and nursery and toddler room. The youth room binder is very similar. It has the policy in front, and then it has a copy of the permission slips in here. I also put a bunch of the permission slips up on the youth board in a clear folder where they can just slip them out. Feel free to take it home, make copies, and use as many as possible. There will also be an updated list of people who are cleared in this binder as well. The van ministry binder, this binder will be in the van, hopefully right between the two seats. In the front here, I just kind of typed up or copied and pasted the transportation, what that says, how there should be 2 approved adults, and then further guidelines. And then down here at the bottom it says, please see driver's record section or sheet on the next page. So on the next page, this is the driver's record sheet. I put this in here just so that we're communicating who the driver is, where they're transporting, and the times. This came up, you know, with when we have youth events or when we go different places. It's important to put the time of when you're leaving and when you're coming back. So for every run, you'll just put the driver, the date, the destination, the time that you leave the church or wherever you're at, and the time that you arrive to where you're going, and then the initials. So there's tons of copies in here. For example, in the mornings, Jay, when you run, you would write your name, date, the place that you're going, the time you leave church, and then the time that you arrive to that destination. So if it's Sassafras, you would put the time that you arrive there. When you leave Sassafras, you'll have to just fill out the time and date again. You can, you know, draw lines if it's the same name and destination, or be the same destination, but the name and the date. In the office will be the blue binder, and that will have both the policy and the appendix and all of the resources that I used and that go into the other binders, all the copies. My hope moving forward is that DMAT will take this one, we'll keep track of who is cleared in our church, and then on a yearly basis, we'll update the church on the child protection policy. If there are any changes that have been made, if there are any upcoming trainings. This training this morning was more informative because we had a revision to the policy, but in the future, trainings like this might take place during lunch on a fifth Sunday, where we just, talk, about our church and about the children and the youth in our church and how we can protect them and follow this policy as a whole. Even people that are not working with children and youth should be aware that we have a policy and that there are people who are working with our children and youth who need to be cleared and who are following a certain standard. That should be a church-wide understanding for sure. So be looking for more, trainings and more communication about this topic at Florin. And like Naomi said, that we all can do a little bit better and move towards keeping our church safe and secure and a loving environment for our current children and youth and for future children and youth that come through our building. So from here on out, I would say that DMAT is going to take this over, and if you guys have any questions, to talk to them.